That's all right. I'm not in a hurry.
We're getting it together.
I gotta send notices online to everybody first, anyway.
I do. Okay.
Plenty of
You
time.
able to turn on this?
Yes.
It's plenty of time. There's no rush.
It's a condenser microphone, so this should be a little.
Yeah,
not
actually,
too close to you. So.
we're live now.
Okay, great.
Perfect timing.
Not too close to the microphone.
Oh, not too close. Okay. All right. Thank you.
This one you don't use, do you?
No, I don't need that. All right. Let's move that away. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari Madhava Kunya Bihari Nanamalaba Giri Barulari Nanamalaba Giri Barulari Nana Vraja Jana Ranjana Sonanan Nana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tera Manachare Yamuna Tera Manachare Jai Hurad Umanva Kunya Bihari Kunja Bihari Vijana Manava Giri Bharatari Danavanapa Giri Bharurati Yasudanandana Prajaganarandana Sudanandana Prajaganarandana Ona Tera Vanachade Yamuna Tera Vanachade Jayo Rangu Madhava Kunya Bihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravidikacharya also Teta Sitashi Shimad. His Divine Grace Savaya Chantanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavanam Ki Jai. Mathuradam Ki Jai. Jagannath Swami Ki Jai. Munamai Ki Jai. Shrimati Lasadevi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Damani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachate Shatarli. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th canto, 4th chapter, text 14.
I have put this computer there, Maharaj, because
Yeah, that's
the
fine.
text there is truncated. On the screen it is truncated.
That's fine. You can move it a little closer
I will move
because
it
you're worried about falling off.
No, I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
And then when we're done, I will take it away. So.
Yeah, no problem. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Etan Maharaja Taverito Maya Krishnanubhavo Agajaraja Mokshanam Swagyam Yashashyam Kali Kamasapaham Duswapna Nasham Kuru Varya Shrinvatam Etan Maharaja Taverito Maya Krishnanubhavo Gajaraja Mokshanam Swargyam Yashashyam Kalikalmasapaham Duswapna Nasam Kuruvarya Shrinvatam Etan Maharaja Taverito Maya Krishnanubhavo Gajaraja Mokshanam Swargyam Yashashyam Kalikalmasapaham Duswapna Nasham Kuruvarya Shrinvatam Etan Maharaja Taverito Maya Krishnanubhavo Gajaraja Mokshanam
Krishnanubhavo Gajarajamokshanam
Swargyam yashasham kalikalmasapaham
Swargyam Yashasyam Kalikalmasapaham
Duswapnanasham kuruvarya shrinvatam.
Swapnanasham Kuruvarya Shringvatam.
Okay.
Etan Maharaja Taverito Maya Krishnanubhavo Gacharaja Mokshanam Svargyam Yashasyam Kalikalmashapaham Dusvapnanasham Guruvarya Shringvatam
Etan Maharaja Taverito Maya
Krishnanubhavo Gacharaja Mokshanam
Krishnanubhavo Gajarajamokshanam
Svargyam Yashasyam Kalikalmasapaham
Swargyam Yashasyam Kalikalmasapaham
Dusvapnanasham Guruvarya
Guruvarya Shringvatam
Etan Maharaja Taverito Maya
Etan Maharaja Taverito Maya
Krishnanubhavo Gajaraja Mokshanam
Krishnanubhavo Gajarajamokshanam
Svargyam Yashasyam Kalikalmasapaham
Swargyam Yashasyam Kalikalmasapaham
Dusvapnanasam Guruvarya Shringvatam
Dusvapnanasham Guruvarya Shringvatam
Etat,
Etat
this.
This
Maharaja,
Maharaja
O King Parikshit,
O King Parikshit
Tava, unto you, Irita, described, Maya, by me, Krishna Anubhava, the unlimited potency of Lord Krishna, by which he can deliver a devotee. Gaja Raja Mokshanam, delivering the king of the elephants. Swargyam, giving elevation to higher planetary systems. Yashashyam, increasing one's reputation as a devotee. Kalikamashapahan, diminishing the contamination of the Kali Yuga. Dushwapnanasham, counteracting the causes of bad dreams. Kuruvarya, O best among the Kurus. Shrinvatam, of persons who hear this narration. So translation, my dear King Parikshit, I have now described the wonderful power of Krishna as displayed when the Lord delivered the king of the elephants. O best of the Kuru dynasty, those who hear this narration become fit to be promoted to the higher planetary systems. Simply because of hearing this narration, they gain a reputation as devotees. They are unaffected by the contamination of Kali Yuga, and they never see bad dreams. So, let me go back to the verse. Well, actually, we should read the next verse because there's no purport to this verse. So, observing etiquette, I'm not going to comment specifically on this verse right now because Prabhupada did not comment on it. And I don't have any Acharya's commentaries right here on it either. So we'll read just text 8:4-15.
Are we reading the Sanskrit again together?
Not together, I'll just read it myself. Yatanu kirtayantyetats shreyas kama dvijataya shuchya pratarutaya dusvapnad yupa shantaye. And the translation is, thereafter, after getting up from bed in the morning, those who desire their own welfare, especially the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and in particular the Brahmana Vaishnavas, should chant this narration as it is without deviation to counteract the trouble of bad dreams. So purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Every verse in the Vedic literature, especially in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, is a Vedic mantra. Here the words Yatanu Kirtayanti are used to recommend that this literature be presented as it is. Unscrupulous persons, however, deviate from the actual narration and interpret the text in their own way with grammatical jugglery. Such deviations are to be avoided. This is a Vedic injunction supported by Shukadeva Goswami, one of the Mahajanas or authorities. He says, Yatanu Kirtayanti, one should recite the mantra as it is, without deviation, for then one will be eligible to rise to the platform of all good fortune. Shukadeva Goswami especially recommends that those who are brahmanas, Shuchya, recite all these mantras after rising from bed in the morning. Because of sinful activities at night, we have bad dreams, which are very troublesome. Indeed, Maharaj Yudhishthira was obliged to see hell because of a slight deviation from devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, dushwapna, bad dreams, occur because of sinful activities. A devotee sometimes accepts a sinful person as his disciple, and to counteract the sinful reactions he accepts from the disciple, he has to see a bad dream. Interesting. Nonetheless, the spiritual master is so kind that in spite of having bad dreams due to the sinful disciple, he accepts this troublesome business for the deliverance of the victims of Kali Yuga. After initiation, therefore, a disciple should be extremely careful not to commit again any sinful act that might cause difficulties for himself and the spiritual master. Before the deity, before the fire, before the spiritual master, and before the Vaishnavas, the honest disciple promises to refrain from all sinful activity. Therefore, he must not again commit sinful acts and thus create a troublesome situation. So, Om Gana Timidanda Shah, Gananjana Shalakaya, Chakshurun Miditam Yena, Tasmai Shigurve Namaha, Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, there's several topics. I wanted to comment on the first verse first. And the first verse is something that's described in the Vedic literatures as Shruti Pala. Shruti Pala means fruit. So it's Shruti means to hear. So it's the fruit of hearing. You'll find this is quite often towards the end of chapters in the different literatures, the Vedic literatures. There's always it's called a benediction. By hearing this, by regularly reciting this, you get liberated, or you get free of fear, you get free of bad dreams. And so this is not actually an exaggeration, especially when dealing with the narration of Krishna Katha. The narration of Krishna Katha is so great that it's described as the remedy for all problems, even for one's sinful activities. And that's mentioned in the sixth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, which follows the fifth canto, obviously. In the fifth canto, you have people suffering from sinful activities, a whole description of the different hells. And some of these hells are quite, well, they're all quite hellish. Can't say that. Some of them are hellish, but they're all hellish because they're hellish. And I remember reading them for the first time. This is when we produced those 17 books in 2 months. I was part of that marathon, which is really interesting. Where Prabhupada said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. And we took Prabhupada's words seriously, and all these books were produced, and people gave up eating and sleeping for, well, maybe not eating, sorry, but sleeping for 2 months. And it was an ecstasy. I was in ecstasy, and all the devotees were in ecstasy. And after it was all over, it was kind of depressing. You know, working for Prabhupada's books is kind of ecstatic, isn't it? And especially when you get into a marathon, it's just like, wow, it's entering into the spiritual world. So anyway, so the 5th canto came out, and we saw all these different pictures of the different hellish situations. And it was really difficult. And so some of the devotees, they became ecstatic. Wow, isn't that great? Look at all these karmis and mlechas, they're going to be suffer. Ha ha ha. Well, that's not a Vaishnava's attitude. And so when Parikshit Maharaj heard about these hells from Shukadeva Goswami, he didn't go, ha ha ha, let the karmis suffer, or let the demons suffer, or let the rakshasas suffer, or let the whatever you call them suffer. He said, how can they be freed from all the sinful activities, the sinful reactions? Yes, Shukadeva Goswami, that's a natural response of a Vaishnava. Because a Vaishnava is Kripa Sindhu, as we're chanting, Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Vaishnava is always thinking, like Prabhupada was always thinking, how to alleviate the condition of the conditioned souls. Like Vasudeva Dutt, he was willing to suffer eternally for the plight of everyone else. So, Shukadeva Goswami answers it first in such a way as to test his disciple. In other words, he gives the wrong answer. Sometimes we might find the guru gives the wrong answer just to see if you're listening, to see if you know things. So he says, Shukadeva Goswami says, what prayaschita is the way out. Prayaschita, of course, means atonement, where you engage in some austerity. Like in the Catholic Church, they had all these like interesting ways of atonement, like flagellation, which is kind of interesting. They would whip each other. Anyone has seen that?
Themselves?
What?
They flew-
Yeah, like that with chains and everything. Anyone has seen the movie Da Vinci Code? Anyone seen that movie here? You would see something that's called self-flagellation. They wear these things called hair shirts. One time I went to this museum called Ripley's Believe It or Not. Anyone's been to this? No.
Yeah.
And they showed all the tortures. It was in the basement. You had to go down to the basement. At least it was in New York. And you had to see all the tortures that the monks would put themselves to become free from karma. You know, this, wow, oh my God. And so that's called prayaschita. And of course, that doesn't work, this prayaschita, because it doesn't kill the desire seed, what's called the papa bija. Bija means seed, and papa, of course, means sin, the desire for sin. And so Parikshit Maharaj said it's like kunjara shochara, an elephant bathing. You know, elephant bathes itself and it throws dust on itself afterwards. And he said, no, Guru Maharaj, you're wrong. Not basically you're wrong, but this is not the right answer. And then Shukadeva Goswami actually gives the right answer at that point. He says, Tasmat Sankirtanam Vishnor Jagan Mangalang Anghasam Mahatam Api Kauravya Vijayantika Nishkritam. It's actually a famous verse. That this chanting of the Lord's holy names and the Lord's pastimes, as we're hearing here, Tasmat Sankirtanam Vishnor, in the association of devotees, because the word Sankirtan means complete chanting, and also means, in association with others, and it becomes more powerful. Also, Lord Kapila says a similar thing. Was it Satam Prasangan Mama Virya Samvado Bhavanti Vritkarna Rasayana Kata? That when the devotees meet, Satam Prasangam means with, same thing, like Sankirtan Prasangam in Sanskrit. It actually is an emphasis. When you put the pra in front of the word and emphasize the good or the intense association. When one associates with the satam, the pure devotee satam prasanga, mama virya samvada, when they hear about Krishna's activities, bhavanti vrit karna rasayana kata, then that transcendental sound is the medicine that cures all the sinful desires, because it goes from the rit karna, it goes from the ear to the heart, rasayana kata, this kata, Krishna kata, to Joshanarashu apavarga vartmani shraddha ritir bhakti anukramishati, then it gradually helps one progress on the path of devotional service from shraddha to taste, to bhakti to prema. And so, anyway, so this is a statement by Lord Kapila, in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, Tasmad Sankirtanam Vaishnava Jangan Mangalam is the most auspicious thing. Anghasam, for the sinful people. Mahatama Pikoravya, even the great souls do it, engage in Krishna Kata. Or the great souls recommend it. There's two ways to understand that in Sanskrit. Vidyakantaka Nishkritam, it's the best way to atone, it's the best way to free yourself from any sort of sin. That's why Prabhupada emphasized very much this Sankirtan, the book distribution, and Harinam Sankirtan, because that's the solution. That's the solution. It's the Bhavokshra Shrotra Matpano Birama Kautama Shloka Gunanavad. That's also Bhagavatam, was it 10th canto, first chapter, text 4. That Bhavokshra Shrotra Mano Birama Kautama Shloka Gunanavada Puman Virajeta Bana Pashugnat. That the only people who won't appreciate that are meat eaters, the killers of the animals. So anyway, so this kirtan, this recitation of the Lord's pastimes, is the most auspicious thing. And that basically you can't think of anything more auspicious. It's the Yuga Dharma, Kali Kalera Dharma, Krishna Nama Sankirtan, Krishna Shakti Vinana, Hate Hari Vavartana. However, Prabhupada makes some very interesting points in the second verse here about this auspicious chanting. And I thought it was very much in regard to a question that was asked of me yesterday. It was a very interesting question that was asked. Like, this nice devotee asked me a question. What about the devotees who chant in a different way? Or maybe should I be specific? Yeah, I guess I should be specific, even though I'm probably offending half the people in the class. But the question she raised was, what about the people who chant instead of Rama, they chant Ramo? Which actually was an interesting question. And so I thought about it, and actually I looked up what Prabhupada said about it, because I thought, look it up in the database like that. There are some verses that use the word Ramo instead of Rama, like Ramo, Ramo, Rama. There's that in the Vedic literatures. However, there's the point of, Sampradaya Vinaya Mantras Te Nishpala Mataha, which means that whatever mantra we chant must be given to us to be effective in the Sampradaya. There's many different mantras in the Vedic literatures, and we can pick and choose our own mantras sometimes. I know devotees do this, they come up with this kavacha, that kavacha, which probably never taught us to chant. But anyway, even though it's there in some Vedic literatures, and some devotees get really into the Puranas and the things and start chanting all these different mantras from the Atharva Veda. Actually, there's mantras in the Atharva Veda where you can get a Brahmastra. Did you know that? You know what a Brahmastra is? Brahmastra, actually, Prabhupada had a specific Brahmastra, which was a drink when you get sick. But that's not what I'm referring to. You know, Prabhupada, when the devotees were very sick and they started drinking all these nice herbal teas, Prabhupada said, I'll make a herbal tea for you. And it was with chili peppers and ginger root. And that's what we call the Brahmastra. And after drinking it, you never thought about being sick again. So, but in the Atharva, I remember Prabhupada recommending that. So in the Atharva Veda, there's for the Brahmastra, which is like a focused nuclear weapon, is there. You can find mantras for that. It's really interesting. You can find mantras for doing all sorts of things. You can find yoga sutras, how to levitate, how to do that. Yeah, anyway, interesting stuff. However, it won't work. Why? Because sampradaya vinaya mantras te nishpavataha. You have to really be initiated in a mantra for it to work. Just like we have our Gayatri mantras, and you can just they're common knowledge actually. They're mentioned in Prabhupada's books, they're mentioned in so many of the books that devotees have printed and distributed. And so you can think, I don't need to take initiation. I can just start chanting these mantras. It's not going to work. It just doesn't work. Things have to be done in a specific way. Devotional service is scientific. In other words, the reason that Krishna accepts something, the reason that Krishna descends, the reason that Krishna appears as the deity is because Krishna has been asked to do that by his pure devotee. It's not that you can just maybe you can if you're a pure devotee, but it's not that I could just say, Krishna, come and appear in this particular way or come and appear in that way. I just don't, I'm not on that level of devotional service. So, in other words, one has to chant the mantra the way it's given by the spiritual master. And the way Prabhupada has given us the Hare Krishna mantra is Hare Krishna, Krishna, isn't it? Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. And it works. And if you do it another way, it won't work. A slight deviation, and you can get an opposite result. Just like, I'm not saying that you'll get the opposite result from chanting in that way, but just like in that story, there was a Brahmin who wanted to create a demon who was an enemy of Indra, and instead he chanted a little bit differently. It was a person who Indra was the enemy of. So anyway, so slight deviation, and Prabhupada tells a story about a slight deviation in regard to even Yudhisthira Maharaj. This is actually from Prabhupada's books, and I forget where it is in Prabhupada's books. But Prabhupada said Yudhisthira Maharaj made a slight deviation, and because of that he had to go to see hell. And what was that slight deviation? That was not in chanting a mantra, of course. That slight deviation was that he was asked during the Battle of Kurukshetra to disempower Dronacharya by telling Dronacharya his son Ashwatthama was dead. Now Yudhisthira Maharaj, he was known as Dharmaraj, someone who really stuck very closely to telling the truth and never deviating from the truth. And so the reason Krishna asked him to say that Ashwatthama was dead when Ashwatthama really wasn't dead was because Dronacharya would believe him completely, and Dronacharya wouldn't believe anyone else. Especially he wouldn't believe Krishna, who lies a lot. Who's going to believe Krishna? He steals butter, and, it's so tricky. But that's what makes him so adorable. Because he's like that. He has all these different qualities, Dhiradanta, Dhiradatta, Dhirabhashanta, Dhiralalita. Anyway, conflicting qualities. So Yudhisthira Maharaj was asked to lie. And Yudhisthira Maharaj said, no. No, God. Imagine saying that to God. Then I'm going to do it my own way. I'm not going to lie. And so Krishna had to come up with another plan so that Yudhisthira would say that Ashwatthama is dead. Krishna said to Bhimsen, what's the name of that elephant? And there was an elephant, fortunately, by the name Ashwatthama. And Krishna said, kill him. And then Yudhisthira Maharaj said, all right, now I can say Ashwatthama is dead. So, but Yudhisthira Maharaj was disobeying Krishna, and ultimately he was lying too. So he had the worst of both worlds. Because even if you tell the truth to give the wrong impression, you understand? That's also lying. You know, he did lie. You know, just because he said under his breath, Ashwatthama, the elephant, is dead. That's also a lie, isn't it? So Yudhisthira Maharaj, because he disobeyed, basically because he disobeyed Krishna, Prabhupada said, his chariot touched the earth after that point. Previously his chariot never touched the earth. And Prabhupada said he had to go see hell. You know, so after it's an interesting story in the Mahabharata that after all the Pandavas, you know, drop off and Yudhisthira is alone, and well, first Yudhisthira is tested, of course. He has this dog with him. The dog happens to be Yamaraj. And he says, I'm not going back to heaven unless my dog can come with me. And he shows his great compassion. This is another interesting point. His compassion of not neglecting any living entity who's taken shelter of him. So, and then Yudhisthira has to see hell after that point. And of course, it's also explained in the Mahabharata that all the Kshatriyas have to see hell because they've killed animals in their lifetime to practice their martial arts. So, anyway, so little deviation. You know, his whole life, you know, Dharmaraj, very nice, little deviation. So this is an important lesson for us. Prabhupada actually draws this parallel for us between Yudhisthira's deviation and what we're doing. And I can think of other times too where people deviated with different mantras. I mean, one time is the famous story where there's this, regarding, actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, where there was this person named Charnadas Babaji, I believe was his name. And he was in Jagannath Puri. And he came up with this bogus mantra that had the bona fide names in it. Nitai Gaur, Bhaja Nitai Gaur, Radhesham, Japa Hari Krishna Hari Ram. Of course, the mantra meant you should worship Nitai Gauranga, but you can chant their names loudly, but Japa Hari Krishna mantra should only be chanted softly. That was their bogus mantra. And for anyone who was part of ISKCON many, many years ago, and I'm not sure if they're still there, and they stayed in the Krishna Balaram guest house, this group, his followers were behind, they had their temple right behind our guest house, and all night long you'd hear this bogus mantra. Nitai Gaur, Bhaja Nitai Gaur, and clang, clang, clang. I said, oh my God. After that, I never stayed in the guest house because it was too much. And this, getting back to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur preached so strongly against this bogus mantra that he created, there was going to be a riot, there were attempts on his life in Jagannath Puri, and so Bhaktivinoda Thakur had to send him away so that nothing happened to him, because he was a very strong preacher, very strict, Nrsimha Guru, he was called. Very strict. He wouldn't tolerate any deviation. And so he was sent away. And Prabhupada didn't like this mantra either. He actually came up with his own version of the mantra that's bona fide. I don't know if any of you heard this. He said he wanted the devotees to chant Jai Nitai Gaur Radhesham Jai Krishna Balaram. And he told the devotees to say that when they greeted the deities there in Vrindavan. So that mantra is bona fide because it's given to us in disciplic succession by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. So, I mean, the whole point in reciting mantras and chanting different things is disciplic succession, sampradaya. And the whole point in our connection with Krishna and understanding how to be Krishna is through Srila Prabhupada, how to be, not Krishna, but how to be Krishna conscious, is through Srila Prabhupada's, we talked about this yesterday, Srila Prabhupada's example for us. And that point is very much borne out in a discussion, again in the Mahabharata, between Yudhisthira Maharaj and Yamaraj. You know, this discussion is how to understand actual religious principles, you know, actual spiritual principles. And the conclusion was, by Yudhisthira Maharaj, Tarko Pratishta Shutina Vibhina, that you cannot understand actual religion, spirituality, by your logic and reasoning, or even by your independent studies of the Vedic literatures, but only by famous verse, actually, Mahajaniyena Gatasa Panta, by following the footsteps and instructions of a Mahajana, a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, anyway, so we are very fortunate in the Krishna conscious movement to have that great devotee, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, who everybody, if they really want to become Krishna conscious, should follow the very easy process that Prabhupada has given us. And of course, we in our inventive minds, especially the Western mind is very inventive, we like to add different things or subtract different things. But Prabhupada gave us a very simple process. You know, chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, distribute his books, read his books. That's all we need, isn't it? Just to be happy in Krishna consciousness. You know, chant the holy name in the way he gave us. You don't need to come up with another mantra. You know, whatever, you know, Hari, Ramo, whatever. It's very simple. Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is very simple for those who are simple-hearted. But for many of us, it gets so complicated. So, anyway, that's the way I've tried to approach Krishna consciousness. So, anyway, that's some of the points I'd like to make in class today. Keep it simple. As we say, we like this KISS philosophy, keep it simple, sadhu. Those who are not Krishna conscious have a different meaning to the last S, which I'm not going to recite in class. So, Brahmamurti?
So the conclusion is that Ramo is not good. Is that the
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, there was Dhananjaya Prabhu, my dear god brother. He tells a story. He was with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada heard. It's a Bengali pronunciation. I also checked with my Bengali friends yesterday. I called one of them up. And I said, is that a good Bengali pronunciation? He said it's basically a pronunciation that's used sometimes by the kirtan people. Actually, another time I was in India with Prabhupada, and there was a Bengali kirtan competition in Mayapur one year. I don't know if anyone, of course, probably none of you remember it. You probably remember. There was a competition who could be the best kirtan leader, kirtan group. And some of them were so expert, they could get the drum to chant Hare Krishna. I mean, it was amazing. It was an amazing performance. You know, talk about dramatic performances, dancing on the stage, with the drums flying in the air. Wow. It was better than Bollywood or Hollywood. And so Prabhupada stopped it. Competing, who can put on the best show like that. There was that other story that I mentioned last night of there was a snake charmer. This is from one of the literatures about Lord Chaitanya. There was a snake charmer who was chanting about Anantashesh. Haridas Thakur heard it, and he was in ecstasy hearing it, and he was rolling on the ground, and the snake charmer very much appreciated, oh, here's a devotee in ecstasy. Then a Brahmin, who also wanted to be appreciated too, started imitating and rolling on the ground. And the snake charmer started kicking him. He said, why are you kicking me? You praised Haridas Thakur. He said, I'm kicking you because you're just imitating. So, Prabhupada did not appreciate, and this is not to criticize any of those kirtan groups, imitative ecstasy. One time a devotee asked Prabhupada, and someone was rolling on the ground, and kirtan, Prabhupada said, they asked, what should we do? And Prabhupada said, kick him out. So anyway, I asked some of my friends about it, and they said sometimes they pronounce like that. And of course there's the statements, Ramo, Rama, A-T, and like that. But Prabhupada said to Dhananjaya, this is a specific memory by Dhananjaya, who I trust very much. He's a very faithful disciple of Prabhupada. Prabhupada asks, who is this Ramo? And Dhananjaya, I think, explained that they're trying to chant Rama. And Prabhupada said, everything will be spoiled. Not that specifically that's going to spoil everything, but, you take one step, and then it just goes another step and another step from what the founder Acharyas taught us. So, my feeling is that one has to be very careful. Like Prabhupada said, devotional service is like a razor's edge. To stick, as far as, we can be inventive as far as presenting Krishna consciousness to people. Obviously, I'm not one of those dyed-in-the-wool conservatives that, as you see, because I do play the guitar. But we can invent it, but we have to be very careful with the Siddhanta and with, what Prabhupada, or the method, the mantras that Prabhupada has given us. We have to be very, very careful, because it may seem that we're spiritual, but we may not be spiritual. Because we have, we do have this tendency to make mistakes, the 4 tendencies of the conditioned soul. We make mistakes, we cheat, we're an illusion, we have imperfect senses. So something can seem very spiritual to us, but it may not be spiritual. Like, for example, sometimes I use the example of I guess what you call in Europe, a PowerPoint, a plug, the electricity comes in. If it's not connected to the powerhouse, it looks the same. I can't tell. I don't know if there's any PowerPoints here. There must be. So.
Oh, there's one behind you, right behind you.
Oh, I can't see it.
But you can't see it.
I can't see it because I don't have eyes in the back. But, it looks the same. I'm sure that's connected, but
This one is.
that one is. But it looks exactly the same. I can't tell the difference by looking at a PowerPoint. But I can tell the difference by putting my fingers in it, which I won't do. By using a test, a tester or something like that. So it's the same thing. Something can seem that's spiritual. Like, obviously before I joined the movement, I thought I was doing a lot of spiritual things. Certainly Allen Ginsberg thought he was doing a lot of spiritual things by taking LSD. Allen Ginsberg, Timothy Leary, all my heroes before I took up Krishna. What? Ken Kesey, yeah. It's spiritual. There was even one Baba, and I won't mention his name, I remember his name, but I won't, who said that God has appeared in the form of a pill in Kali Yuga. He was a Baba from Vrindavan, who was the guru of some of these LSD people. So you think you're experiencing something spiritual, but it's just another version, just the chemistry in the body, right? Yes, certain times we can take certain pills. I take high blood pressure pills. They don't give me a high, but they bring me down.
One can learn something from pills.
Yeah, one can learn something. I mean,
But it's not spiritual.
yeah, it's not
per
spiritual.
se.
One can learn, help. The psychologists use pills sometimes. There's certainly it's fine. I'm not against pills, but spiritual means something transcendental. Something above this world. We can learn things of this world, or take healthy precautions. So, but spiritual, has to come down to simple success. You have to be connected to the powerhouse. You have to connect to the powerhouse. Just like, let's say the deities, for example. I was in Prabhupada's room one time in Mayapur, and Prabhupada was, or a group of devotees came back from traveling Sankirtan, and they were telling Prabhupada about a temple they had visited, and they were not treated well at the temple. The devotees weren't given prasadam or anything at the temple, but then the devotees said, well, we went to see the deities, very beautiful deities there. And Prabhupada said, there's no deity there in the temple. And the devotee said, but Prabhupada, we saw the deity. And Prabhupada said, you heard what I said. This is my direct experience here from Prabhupada. You heard what I said. There is no deity. And then Prabhupada gave that famous Bengali quote. It's like they're using the Shalagram Shila to crack nuts with. In other words, you look and you think Krishna's there, but Krishna may not be there if you're committing offenses. In which they were. Obviously Prabhupada had that realization to say that Krishna had gone or whatever. So that's why it's so important, because of our imperfections, to just really stick to what Prabhupada taught us. That was the point I'm making. Anyway, I don't want to overdo it. Yeah.
How does it work with the Hare Krishna mantra?
Yeah.
If people hear it in the street,
Yeah.
Harinam party, and they pick it up and they imitate it,
Then it's fine.
Yes.
It's fine. That's, of course, that's Namabas chanting in the beginning, if they imitate it, if they're not devotees. And it's also Agyata Sukriti, So yeah, they make advancement.
If they in turn give the mantra to another one and another one.
Well, they're hearing it from Prabhupada. The mantra descends. Ultimately, I give the experience of my hearing the mantra for the first time. I was a hippie or something undescribable. But anyway, I was listening to the radio, and then Prabhupada's album, his first album with Chant, came on the radio, and I heard it, and it changed my whole life. I didn't know what it was. I knew it was Hare Krishna, but I didn't know who Prabhupada was. But just hearing. And, there is Namabas chanting, but even if one gives the name of a hotel called the Ramada Inn, one makes spiritual advancement. But as far as achieving the goal of Krishna Prema, there's some benefit, yeah. Prabhupada said, even this Nitai Gaur Radha Shyam, Bhaja Hare Krishna, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram, he said there's some benefit, but ultimately they have to give it up and come to the right way of chanting. So you do get, just saying Haram like the Muslims say, Prabhupada said, they're making some benefit, and there's no disciplic succession or anything like that. Yeah.
Like the first time I heard the Hare Krishna mantra was in the musical Hair.
Yeah.
And I guess they got it from the devotees.
Yeah, they got it from the devotees.
So in this way it's...
Yeah, it's somehow some sort of disciplic succession. Yeah, I saw it here too. When they started chanting Hare Krishna, they threw their clothes off too, which was kind of shocking. Has anyone seen that? Yeah, it was just like Hare Krishna. And then everybody, I was very conservative when I was young, so I was shocked that they were all walking around without clothes on. And Broadway, I went to Broadway to see the play years ago. Yeah.
There is the statement that there are no hard and fast rules
Yes.
for the chanting of Hare Krishna. I really appreciate this point that you made, that it's not really the O at the end of the Rama, it's that mentality.
Yeah.
And in the Veda base, I don't know if you've seen this, that it's attributed to Vishnu Chant Swami.
Yeah.
That Vishnu Chant Swami was singing the Hare Krishna mantra, where he had deliberately changed Hare Rama to Hare Ramo because he had heard it being sung that way in India. When
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada noticed, that's from Palakatas.
Yeah.
When Srila Prabhupada noticed this change, he immediately stopped him by asking, who is this Ramo? Vishnu Chand Swami looked up and said nothing, as Srila Prabhupada rebuked his disciple with these exact words, you are ruining our movement.
Yeah. That's a similar story from the one I heard from Dhananjaya.
Yeah. With that, Srila Prabhupada continued to correct Vishnu Chand Swami by saying, it's Rama, and then went on his way. And that was told by Vishnu Chand Swami to Mahamuni Das, and Mahamuni told it to Palaka Das.
Yeah.
So it's credible, it's a credible, I would say, it's
Yeah.
a credible source. But what you said is, I think that's the overarching principle. It's the mentality of changing. It's not, if you chant Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Ramo a little bending towards the O, it's not an offense or anything per se.
No.
It's that mentality.
It's the mentality.
And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's the mentality, and it's just like, just one step towards more things
Because
happening.
what comes next, then the next thing is something else and something else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dangerous mentality, and also the way the potency comes from doing things the way we're instructed to do, especially the essential practices of Krishna consciousness.
It's safer to say Hare Rama.
Yeah.
It's definitely safer.
It's safer. I mean, is Ramo still potent? I don't know. I can't answer.
Ram is included in it. So
So there's something, but are we also violating the principle of following the spiritual master and sampradaya vinahi mantras te nishpala mataha, that you have to chant a mantra the way you receive in disciplic succession for it to be potent. So
we should always go for the safer option if
Yeah,
possible.
it's safe, and also it just like takes people away from Prabhupada and especially the essential practices of the Krishna consciousness movement. It's like the morning program and things like that. These are essential practices. If we do away with Guru Puja, say, oh, we don't need Guru Puja, or we add some other thing, and
We're changing one word in the Guru Vandana song sometimes.
which is
Lokanath Lokera Jivana,
Jivan,
and
yeah.
then sometimes because it's directed by
Prabhupada.
who wrote it?
Narottama Das
Narottama
Thakur.
And he's remembering
Yeah, yeah.
Lokanath, and so sometimes we say Srila Prabhupada Lokera Jivana.
Yeah, that's
but
fine.
No, that's
No.
okay, isn't it?
No, I mean, that's fine. You're praising Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. And people add things to the Premadwani mantras too, a lot. That's a simple thing. It's, Premadwani, they say Jai this, Jai that, Jai Sankirtan, Jai book distribution, Jai Shri Radhakund, people get in all sorts of stuff like that. But I don't think there's any harm in that. But, specifically, the most important thing we do is chanting Hare Krishna. And to mess with that, wow, that's scary, isn't it?
There was an argument in the 70s in India because, from what I recall from an audio recording, that disciples asked Srila Prabhupada, what shall we do with these people who say Hare Rama, Hare Krishna? They don't say Hare Krishna, Hare
Right.
Rama. And Srila Prabhupada said, don't do anything.
Yeah, because it ends up exactly the same. I mean, whether you start with Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, in the circular motion, it ends up exactly the same.
Oh,
motion.
it's just in general, they often say, Indians just say Hare Rama, Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
It's the Hare Rama, Hare Krishna mission. They
Yeah.
kind of turn it around. And Srila Prabhupada said, don't pick a fight with them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you start with Rama or whether you start with Krishna. So, but you asked a very interesting question referring to the verse in the Shastaka, Niyamena Shishtan. There's no hard and fast rules for chanting. But Prabhupada also gave us the 10 offenses against chanting. So, this, strictly speaking, if you translate that, niyamena tishta means time, place, and circumstance rules of chanting, like there are with the Gayatri mantra. We have rules for chanting the Gayatri mantra that you have to do it at certain times of the day. You know, sometimes people, there was another night, they asked Prabhupada, what if you miss the Gayatri mantra? Should you chant them all in the evening? But Prabhupada said, no, you have to chant them at certain times of the day. Tri Sandhya is a Sandhya mantra. So certain mantras, certain things have to be done in certain circumstances. Like we have a Kadasi on a certain day. It's not a Kadasi as every day, thank God. So these are time, place, and circumstance rules. But the holy name can be chanted. I mean, I fly in airplanes, it's a lot. It's not that I'm saying this is an impure circumstance, I can't chant the holy name here. Let me not chant Hare Krishna here. And even if you're in an impure place like the bathroom or something, like you should chant while you're there. Because what if you die? You say, sorry, I'm dying. That's right, I can't chant Hare Krishna. It's an impure place. What are you going to chant? Mommy or something? You chant, call out to your mother or something? So that's really, strictly speaking, that's how the Acharyas define Niyamena Tishtam. That there are hard and fast rules. You have to chant Trinadapi Sunichena Thurariva Sahishnana Manina, chant in humble state of mind. I Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram. And this Lord Chaitanya gave us rules. The Goswamis, Rupa Goswami gave us rules for chanting the 10 offenses against chanting. So that's my understanding. So I think there's a rule to take prasad, of course the Kadasi, but I do take fruits and everything. So thank you very much. A little controversy. All glories